Hello, my name is Holly Antel, also known as the Oracle of Delaware. Quick disclaimer, this video is only intended for use and viewership by my uncle, Frank, and my father, Bela. Um, this video does not contain any personal birth time or place information. It contains some first names, but does not contain otherwise any kind of uh, birth or personal information. It will show the charts though. Good luck trying to rectify it to find out their personal information. Um, and any people they may choose to share it with. So personally, other people, friends, family, my full permission to share it with anyone they want. Especially if they have people in their network that might be interested in this kind of math research and math talent that I have. So just to inform you, should they share it with research people or anyone they might know in their network, you are invited to contribute to my research effort. It's completely independent and unpaid. I can receive donations on Cash App, cash tag Coffee Crow 420. So, the disclaimer, so I want to put that out there. Unfortunately, you record anything on a device, it can be compromised. So, do my best to protect privacy as an astrologer and professional. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I actually figured out how to make my pointer really big. So people that might have, you know, vision, make it easier to see than that tiny little pointer I tend to use when demonstrating. So uh, trying to always improve my teaching and explaining capabilities. So this is just kind of an overview of my novel system and the math behind it. So human design, as I've said before, has 5 types: generator, manifesting generator, manifestor, projector, and reflector. My new system is not based off of that human design system. However, it deploys all this kind of information. It's just how these are activated. And my system creates 7 different types rather than the original 5. The original 5 are based off of activations concerning the throat chakra and the sacral chakra. My system, by contrast, revolves around activation surrounding the solar plexus chakra and the root chakra. So that's kind of the difference. A quick overview of the interpretations, which is the coolest part. Maybe not, I don't know, the math part's really cool too. So astrology is like very scientific, mathematical, a way of, it's like planet cartography, mapping the planets. And then there's the interpretation, which is, what does that mean for human affairs or individual personalities and things like that. Um, the crown chakra kind of rules or governs over big ideas and inspiration. And human design has interpretations of what it means when it's open or defined as it pertains to those kinds of things. As for me, I'm kind of developing what I think that may indicate in terms of binary traits. So I was explaining to my dad earlier, the throat chakra that governs communication. And I would like to do studies of like, is someone better communicating with other people with writing versus speaking? Because I think that, open versus defined throat chakra might refer to something binary like that. Like if you're defined, you're better at writing. If you're open, you're better at speaking. This is my chart that we're starting with. So I want to investigate these chakras other than like their traditional interpretations within the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, just kind of based off of that has 7 chakras. This has 9. So it's a little bit different than the Hindu Brahmin original system, but other very similar. It has the 7 exact ones and then it adds 2 more. So I want to develop my own kind of like research and study of what, this means for human affairs. I think we can approach it scientifically as well as interpretively, even when it comes to like how astrology might be interpreted. So, third eye chakra deals with types of thinking. So this is inspiration, this is thinking, this is communication. The G center represents like is one of the new ones. The G and the spleen are the non-original ones. It's called the spleen in human design. I prefer spleen pronunciation. But the G center deals with a sense of purpose and direction. It's also like a rules over love, they say in human design. And then the spleen governs instinct and survival in your immune system. The sacral represents your energy to do things, sacral chakra. And the root chakra represents um, kind of like your basic survival needs, like the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, like eating and drinking and stuff like that. And the solar plexus governs emotions and the emotional wave. And according to human design, which I concur with, these centers can have pressure, right? So pressure about food resources, scarcity, stuff like that is centralized according to the zero loci of that pressure is in the root chakra. The pressure of emotions, that the loci that is in the solar plexus center. So I think that these correspond to different areas of the body, perhaps memory storage areas. In my theory of cognitive science, I think that memory is stored in the entire body, genetic memory as well as our own personal memories. So I think these may correspond physically into memory systems throughout the body or different kind, like the spleen, for example. I think would correspond with like I think it's the parasympathetic nervous system or the sympathetic nervous system. The one that's invoked with fight or flight, I think it's parasympathetic nervous system. So I think the spleen, for example, may represent that, as well as like your immune system, lymph nodes, stuff like that. So I think these might have, biological correspondences. So my kind of theological basis, because I'm using this in other science to build like kind of a unifying theory. The theological basis, I think that, the human, talk about the human condition, I believe we were intelligently designed by one creator who pre-existed before the Big Bang. I think it's kind of undeterminable whether or not he is eternal years old or spontaneously existed. But I think there's a lot of evidence saying that we are intelligently designed. And in my theological essays and stuff, I also go on to talk about how I don't think, some conditions, I don't think God is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. And there's an infinite gap between smart enough to create consciousness in the universe and all-knowing. So I think he falls somewhere in that range rather than is or could ever approach all-knowing. I think all-knowing has to be impossible for heaven to be possible. And other really cool logical philosophical theories dealing with theology in other parts of my CV, which I will link in the description of this video. And so I think what human design or astrology might have uncovered is that in order to generate like randomization and human variation and personality, make us all, special little snowflakes, a lot of things go into play. So we have our biological uniqueness, our genetics, and then we have in existentialism, philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre calls it facticity, which I think is a brilliant way to say it. But like, your socioeconomic class you're born into, the family you're born into, the stuff in our lives that we can't help, right? So I think that astrology may represent that kind of facticity, where it's like kind of like Dungeons and Dragons stats. There are different things might be better at writing versus speaking. One's not better than the other in terms of communication. You might be more skilled or talented at one or more passionate about one over the other, though, based on this. So this is kind of a way that God, I think, has used astrology as a randomized kind of way to assign different personality traits. So with this astrological randomization, plus a randomization of our biology and other elements of our facticity, like where we were born and what family we were born into, plus our use of free will and our memory, stuff like that, create who we are as an individual snowflake consciousness. So that's how it all kind of builds together towards like a bigger theory. But that's kind of the basis I have for thinking about how the human design system may have like accuracy and things like that. And I do think there is something to the original 5 types. I do think that the manifestor type, I'm starting to think that it revolves around ego definition rather than throat definition. Because the throat, as you can see, has the most potential activation. So it's really easy. I think manifestor is even more rare than what's being studied now because it's attributed to the throat activation. I think it's ego activation. So I think I'm a sleeper cell manifestor is my theory. I don't know how to do more research in this. Um, so my uh, I call it dynamic Jing astrology instead of human design. And mine is based off of seven types rather than five. I'm actually going to pull up that portfolio. This is the Neutrino platform. This is a great platform, human design information, and it's what I use to create the PDFs and other things. One of my clients gifted me a year subscription to this last year, so I'm very grateful for it. It's going to run out soon, so I'm getting the most out of it that I can. Um, so this is the corresponding portfolio. It's going to take a minute to load, of course. I don't have that much patience, so I'll do something else while that is loading. Um, so the seven types are based off of activations relating to the solar plexus chakra and the root chakra. Um, and it so if you consider these two in a specifically logical way, there are only seven different overall types. And I think I ran this model through ChatGPT. There's 500 and something possible types using my system. So, for example, in my system, I'm a raven type. Ravens, there's two types of raven. There's common raven, and then there's rare raven. Common raven, all raven types have these two open. They're undefined, the solar plexus and the root chakra. Uh, but they also have one of the four centers that can possibly connect to these two active. That's a common raven. Whereas rare ravens, uh, do not have these defined, but they also do not have defined any of the four centers that can connect to the solar plexus or root. And um, so, for example, how it becomes like a 500 type chart system. I'm a common raven, and this is another common raven chart. And even though we have completely different definitions, we're both common ravens. Um, but we have completely different definitions. So that's how you get seven types. And then these, it's like some kind of you raise it to the power of whatever, and it's a 500 something types. So there are many different ways that these seven categories can unfold in different chart typing. How it overall works is you take this is regular astrology. So you get a birth chart snapshot and 29 degree Scorpio, 9 minutes, 22 seconds falls into this range. So it's gate 14, line 5. This is been a lot of critics of the original human design system. These are another pair. Uh, one from the Zen Human Design, but they have this open source. So, and this is all linked in the dynamic Jing astrology. So every degree, minute, and second corresponds to a line in the original I Ching Book of Destinies, a hexagram, and a line. So, and then those activate the gates, and then when two gates connect in a channel, it defines the centers. So this is how astrology kind of feeds into human design, and then so I didn't do, or this is they claim Ra Uru who did this in 87, but I suspect that diplomats in China or something gave him this and then wanted a kind of woo cover story to not reveal the honest authors. I don't believe. I think he was trusted and smart in math with this, but I don't think he the story goes he heard a voice in 87, January 87, that gave him all this information. I'm like, nah, I don't think I don't think that's it. But this seems to be it is so well done and so mathematically awesome and cool. It feels like, this would take the work of several people, not just one getting an enlightening. And another thing too about Roz, he didn't really despite the very woo aspect of the original story, uh he didn't talk about it much. He kind of like, top of the system, not that. Don't worry about it. He wasn't a very woo person. So that's what I appreciate about him. Uh, so that's kind of how it all comes together. And then, oh, there's so much this can go in so far. I could talk hours about this. So, this is my nephew's chart right here, the pure rave. He's a pure rave. Uh, my favorite kind of rave. Rave was the first chart type I thought of or conceptualized. It was actually on my own. It was a rave type, right? Because I think that the solar plexus and root chakras here are going to be kind of like hyper chakras. They're going to activate things. So when things are only connected to those, they're going to be kind of special activations. So rave was the first type I conceptualized. And I'm kind of like trying to put, instead of like, I'm trying to pair each type with legendary creatures. So like vampire, demon. Those are the only two I'm kind of confident on. My type's a demon type, and then the rave type is a vampire type. I'm also floating around like werewolves, trolls, elves, like other kinds of things for the other types. Those are the only two I'm pretty confident. I'm waiting for more like inspiration on the other ones. Um, so this is a pure rave versus a common rave. It's my dad's chart versus my nephew's chart. So all raves have either the solar plexus or solar plexus or root defined or both, and that center is defining one other center. And the center it's defining is only defined by either or of these two and no other centers. So this chart kind of shows it pretty easily. It's color coded. There's only four possible chakra types that can connect to the solar plexus or root. And you can see what those connections look like. The G, even though the G does only connects to these four. So I might even do further math at the G center. It only connects to these four, but it cannot connect with a direct channel to the root or solar plexus, and then these two. So the yellows have no connection to these two, and the kind of salmon colored connect to these two. So my nephew here, he has a solar plexus connected to the throat and the root connected to the sacral. So these are rave activations. But if you notice, he only has activations like this. So he has these two defined and then these two defined, and no other different types of definition in the chart. Whereas my dad here, he has this rave activation here. So the splen is activated by the root. But he also has other definitions in the chart that are not this definition. So that's the difference between a pure rave and a common rave. Statistically, I would imagine these are more rare than common raves. We'll love to do statistics to see what's more prevalent in the human population between the 7 types. So ravens, like I explained earlier, a common raven, this is my chart, this is Abe Lincoln's chart, I believe. My aunt, Nikki, also has a chart like this with only these two defined. These are rare ravens. They can either be reflectors or they can have this definition. So the G center here can't be defined by any center except for these 4. So by definition, a rare raven cannot have a G center defined because it would have to be defined by one of these 4, and then it would become a common raven. And so the other types are demi-rave, common mid-rave, and pure mid-rave. Pure mid-rave is the most kind of like specific type. It's only these two activated and nothing else activated. This is President Barack Obama's chart. Only having the root and solar plexus connected to each other. It can be any of these channels, and any of these other kind of hanging gates can be occurring. That's where all these variations come in. So, and really in the 500 types of charts, because we're only considering how these centers are activated, there's a lot more technically it could be. So like, this counts for 3 different types of charts, but then you consider these can all be different things. it explodes the number of charts it could be. So it's the 500 chart types, but like only if you're considering these bigger kind of concepts of the centers being active or not the hanging gates that explodes the number of charts there could be. So pyramid rave only has these two activated. And then hanging gates forever, but no other activations. Um, a common midrave has these two defined to each other and other definitions in the chart that these two do not connect to at all. I believe this is Tucker Carlson's chart. Could be wrong. So a common midrave is these two defined, but then there's other definitions in the chart. So these two are similar because these are both defined to each other, and then it's like either with other definitions or without other definitions. And the demi-rave or the demi-rave has centers that are activated, so directly connected to the root or solar plexus, but those centers are also connected to other centers. So they don't have any kind of rave activations going on in it. So no rave activations going on in the chart. But these two charts are defining centers that are defined also by other centers. So I found a way to express these concepts logically using algebra. Easy, they kind of look like all lined up to each other. So when considering the root and solar plexus and the logical method I'm using here, there are only 7 overall types that can exist. And these are it. So I'm guessing that rare raven is going to be the least occurring kind of chart. I think that actually, no, you know what? Pure midrave. Pure midrave is going to be the rarest chart. I'll tell you why. There's the three. It needs one of these 3 channels defined. Whereas a rare raven occurs with these 3 channels defined and also no centers active whatsoever. So it's kind of like the 3 and 3, but then you have the extra no centers can be defined. So I think statistically this will be the rarest, followed by rare raven, and the rest are kind of a mystery. I think demi-raves are going to be pretty common, common raves will be pretty common, and common ravens are going to be the common. So demi-rave and then the common raven and common raves are going to be the most occurring statistically throughout the population. So, and then the common mid-rave being a little bit not quite as rare as a rare raven or the pure mid-rave, but not as common as these. And the pure rave I think will be a little bit rarer. So I did a small kind of statistical sample. I did 42 charts of people I know. This is various astrological information about them. And these are the control statistics. So in the Jovian archive, they have so many appearing as right angle, so many appearing as left angle, because every chart that's entered in their website, they generate some statistics based off of, including the cross types and these types. So basically with my small 42 sample study, it pretty much aligns with how many right angle crosses occur according to their statistics, how many left angle crosses occur according to their statistics, and how many juxtaposition angle crosses occur according to their statistics. I think I know 3 people discovered a new one with just juxtaposition crosses. My uncle, very rare type of cross, very interesting kind of cross. And then just as the distribution of the different types according to human design. I have more manifestors and projectors, which is a little bit different. To them, manifestor things about 8% of the population or 9% of the population, whereas projectors are closer to 20% of the population. So, but it's pretty close. Reflectors are 1%. So, So these reflect the statistics that are generally in this chart sampling is I think is a good kind of sample because it reflects those statistics that they find as well. So here's what I found on my chart typing on this sample of 42. So 2% pure midrave, um, 5% common midrave, 22% demi-rave, 2% rare raven, 31% common raven, common rave, and then 7% pure rave. So that's kind of like the very initial kind of guess or hypotheses is how these might be distributed in the population. So this is 13 random public figures as well as myself, and the types they are. So Anderson Cooper. They're not included here. These are people I know personally that have given me their birth times. So I wanted to get, as good of a scientific study on this as I could. So those people I know personally, is no celebrities, and their birth time stuff. So, because celebrity birth information, Astro-Dienst, a great astrology website, one I use. It's out of Germany. They they rate how accurate birth time is. So not all celebrity birth times are accurate. But so for this sample is people I know, birth times I have. And this is celebrity, so I didn't quite quantify it. But Barack Obama is a pure mid-rave. President Trump, he's a common rave. Elon Musk, not a fan. He's also a common rave. Uh, Madam Secretary Hillary Clinton, common raven. Like me, I'm a common raven. So is President Joe Biden. He's a common raven. John Berman of CNN. He's a common raven too. Jon Stewart, Comedy Central, is a demi-rave. Ted Cruz, he's also a demi-rave. And then Tucker Carlson, he's a common mid-rave. So yeah, that was his chart earlier I was looking at. President Putin, Tsar Putin, he's a demi-rave. And the fabulous RuPaul, she's a common rave. Raves are my favorite. He's not my type, but they're my favorite types. They're the first ones I conceptualized. Just where I kind of. So this is like where the I Ching math comes in. This is fun. So much math. I love it. So the hexagrams are composed of two trigrams. And in the I Ching, the unbroken lines or phallic lines, as I say, are the yang lines, and then the broken lines are yonic, which is the opposite of phallic. Recently learned that are the female lines. So if you take yin and yang represented by broken or unbroken lines and the arrangement into 6 lines, you will come up with 64 unique hexagrams. So this is a very old book, unknown author, probably, collaboration over time. And this is what the astrology gets plugged into in terms of math, which is really cool. And so when you contemplate how this works, this is why I said this is not Ra Uru in 87. This is from the 1600s. And this is actually the exact way, because you can arrange these in different ways. This is the exact way that human design does it. This is the exact configuration. And it can be hard to read because the guy who's given to, he's like one of the founding mathematicians of Boolean algebra and computation. Leibniz, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Very German name. He wrote this is not, there's no hexagram 0. This is not hexagram 1. Hexagram 1 is this one. I don't have all of them memorized, but hexagram 1 is all yang lines, so it's a little bit easy to recognize. So this is marked as hexagram 63. It's actually hexagram 1. 2 over here is marked as 0, all yin lines, and so on and so forth. So I meticulously looked at this and was like, one by one, I corresponded it to the human design one. But it's fascinating because you can arrange it like this. arrange it differently on half the wheel. Then like it's clockwise on half the wheel that the order is, and then counterclockwise on the other half of the wheel. But what's fascinating about this is you arrange it this way and they become opposite of their inverted lines. So this stuff is so cool. Uh, for example, one is opposite of two on the wheel. If you see here, there's one, there's two. Uh, and all the, all yin lines, the inverted line of that is all yang lines. So arranging it this way randomly and putting it on the wheel and kind of adjusting that clockwise, counterclockwise thing, they're always paired with their opposites. So my main hexagram is 14-8 for my birth chart, sun and earth. So here's 14, here's 8. 14 is top line yang, fifth line yin, and the rest are yang lines. And then 8 is top line yin. This is upside down, but top line yin, fifth line yang, and then the rest of them are yin lines. So it's a complete inversion. And they all do that if you arrange it this way. So that's why I'm very unconvinced who just came up with this in 87. And this was, long, worked on by many brilliant mathematicians over history. So I am standing on the shoulder of giants with my cool math system. And I'm very glad to and honored to. So I have X, Y, B, D, and Q variables. I might rename. I would have to go through to do it, but I kind of want to the Q variable finds the demi-rave, and the D variable finds the mid-rave. So I kind of want to switch, the demi-rave, make it the D variable, but I'll take a lot of times. I'm not doing that quite yet. But to me, this is kind of an art form. You know what I mean? Like using math as art. I love it so much. But so the Y and X values are used to find the Raven charts. And the Y value is used to find every chart. So N just tells you whether or not N value, whether or not something is open or defined. So simple yes, no, present, absent. Is the center defined or open? So that's the N variable. It's the simplest variable to have. And so Y just looks for if your solar plexus is open or defined, if your root is open or defined. That's it. So in my chart here, Y equals 0 because both are open. X variables looks at if the 4 centers that connect to these two are defined. So I have 2 of those, the heart and the spleen here could connect but aren't, but they're activated. So my X is 2. The other 3 variables kind of help determine the other charts. So B variable is the rave variable. Maybe I'll change it to R instead of B. But because they all look kind of similar, B, Q, D, you kind of flip it. Like I said, I get to be artistic with math. It's fun. B variable finds the rave. D variable. So rave is when a center is defined. So these are logic statements. Yes, no, this logic is present in the chart. Is what these other variables look for instead of activated or not. So it doesn't correspond where the open or not corresponds directly to the chart. These are kind of yes, but there's some logic being inferred here. So they're a little bit different than the XY variables. So a B variable will be 0 when the center is open. It'll also be 0 if the center is defined by any centers other than the root or solar plexus chakra. And then a B variable is 1 when the center is defined only by the root and or solar plexus. So that's the B variable. The D variables, D is 0 when the center is open. D is 0 when it's a B variable, when it's defined only by the root and or solar plexus. And D equals 0 when the center is defined, but it includes a definition from the root and or solar plexus. So the D variables, these identify the mid-rave types. So the center is defined, but not defined to the root or solar plexus. So what this D variable is trying to look for is that these two are connected to each other because in these equations, y has to be 2. So it's looking for these being connected to each other and whether or not they're connected to other centers. So D variable is fine when the center is defined, but not defined to a root or solar plexus. So I have D variables. Because I have centers that are defined that are not defined to the root or solar plexus. But they're unnecessary to find out my chart type, Raven. But they're necessary to find out that I'm not a mid-rave or not other types. And then Q variable is a demi-rave chart. So it's a 1 when the center is defined by the root and or solar plexus and at least one other center. So this is President Trump's chart. The throat here is defined by the solar plexus, but it's also defined by the third eye and the ego. His only rave activation here is the solar plexus is defining the sacral chart here, because this is defined by other centers over here. So the 7 proofs I was actually looking, I can make this common rave one a little bit less redundant. I just need the rule A is a integer equal to or greater than 1. Because this will be true if that happens. If y is 0, it'll cause that A is 0 because of the multiplication. And if B is 0, same thing will happen. So this is a little bit of a redundancy because if you're doing it right, it'll only be number 1 through 4 or 1 through 2. So it's kind of redundancy in terms of like thinking about how to do this in computation, but it might not need that redundancy. So looking at President Trump's chart here, his third eye is defined only by the throat. So he has an ED of 1 and an HD of 1. He has that one B variable, sacral, and then ln1, so his Y is 1, and his Q is 1. So he has positive numbers that will go into all of these, so thus A will be a number equal to or greater than 1. He will fail the common Raven chart proof because Y needs to be 0. I don't have it in the rule explicitly because for x minus y equals x, y must equal 0. So because he has a y1, he can't, his x is 2. 2 minus 1 equals 1. 2 does not equal 2. So he'll fail the common Raven chart proof. So this kind of goes over, this is an example of my chart. And I have this all spelled out here. I have 22 pages of examples. And I also, in this, have, how these end up failing. So it fails, this one breaks the rule. Equation holds true, but the rule is broken. So I'm not a rare Raven. Why that's not loading. This is a pure Raven. This is George Clooney's chart. So this one's a little bit more complicated than a Raven or a common Rave one. It looks complicated. It's not. It's simple algebra, but it can be it's a lot of information at once. So it's like, where do I even start? But once you kind of get it, it's a lot easier. You also have to be able to read math. But so how this is working is B plus Y minus D minus Q equals B plus Y plus D plus Q. I do want to kind of challenge myself mathematically to have all 4 variables or all variables used on one side of the equation used on the other side of the equation, but in a different way. So B plus Y minus D minus Q will equal B plus Y plus D plus Q. It's just a fancy way in math of verifying that D and Q are 0. The equation will fail if D and Q are not 0, and then the equation will fail if Y is 0. So this needs a B variable and a Y variable present and no other. types of connections present. And then that's a pure wave. Um, this is how Donald Trump works. Plugging in y equals 1, d equals 3, b equals 1, q equals 1, put in the equation. I need to either go over arithmetic. So I think there's a cleaner way you can write this. But I'm trying to write it to how I understand math. Um, so that's the common rave. This is where it gets a little, as my friend, my buddy, Andrew's chart. He's an egoless manifester. Um, so this is just kind of like this is meant to show how uh things will, if it has an unvariable, then I believe it should have one of these. We'll never have two of these though. It can't be more than one of these. It's either a B, a Q, a D variable if there is an unvariable present. So if there is an N, it will be one of these but not the other. So I was thinking of looking at Trump's chart for a second. I'm like, wait a second, this is not a B variable. Here it is. So his throat here is only connected to the solar plexus, but no other center. So that's his rave activation. He's another common rave, filthy rave, as I call him affectionately. Uh, so, and then this here is a D variable because it's not connected at all to the root or solar plexus. So if n equals 1, then it will be either P, B, or Q as well, and not the other two. And this is our Putin's chart. And just kind of the other same like algebra style. Q plus Y minus B equals Q plus Y plus B. Wait, how would that work? I like sometimes like I forget. Oh, because B has to be 0. That's why. So I was looking to see that B is 0, so there's no rave activations. Um, but it wants Y and Q to be present, but no B present. So if Y is present, if there's a 1 or a 2 Y, it's not 0, it can't be a Raven chart. But it could be a rave chart or a mid-rave chart. Uh, but so all we need to look for is whether or not it has that Q variable. Like I said, I want to change it to the D variable since it's demi-rave. So when the center is defined by the root and or solar plexus and at least one other center. So once that present, this is the minimal amount of information you need to define this kind of chart. So his PQ is 1, his TN is 1, and then he has no other types of variables. So plugging it in, Q plus Y, he has that 1 plus 1. Minus B, there's no B variable, so it works out that 2 equals 2. And Y is the number 1 through 4. I made the rules a little bit redundant because, I don't want to think too, like, I want to, be able to precisely classify these 7 types. So, there are instances where charts will pass the equation and not the rule. So it's kind of why the penchant for redundant rules. This is President Obama's. So you just want Y equals 2 and nothing else, none of those other variables present. So you just want Y equals 2 and nothing else. So Y minus D minus Q minus B equals Y plus D plus Q plus B if and only if Y equals 2. So his Y equals 2, his others are 0. He only has that activation. So I guess ends can just be ends because I don't think this falls into, yeah, so this doesn't fall into a B, D, or Q, so I take that back. Not every n variable will fall into a B, D, or Q because these don't. So Y is 2 and nothing else is present. So 2 equals 2. Pretty easy. Common mid-rave. This is Mr. Tucker Carlson's chart. Um, Same kind of strategy I'm using here. We want Y and D present, but no other variables present. So Y and D want Y to be present. Uh, and we want D to be present, which is when the center is defined, but is not defined to the root or the solar plexus. So logically, if Y equals 2, it means those two are defined to each other, so long as um, there are no variable. So long as there's no, I don't have it on here, Q variables present. So he has D equals 3, his B equals 0, he's not a rave, his Q equals 0. So 2 plus 3 minus 0 minus 0 equals 2 plus 3 plus 0 plus 0, 5 equals 5. Since the equation and the rules hold true, it must be a common mid-rave chart. So this is a point of logic I was going to make. I'm slipped my mind. I'm trying to remember. I forget. So those are the 7 types, and then trying to see how other. So Abraham Lincoln's a rare raven. He'll fail a common raven chart because his x equals 0 and x doesn't equal 1 through 4. Or is mine the opposite? I'll fail the rare raven chart because my x is 2 and not 0. Donald Trump is a common rave, and this is a pure rave. So this kind of maps out what makes the equation fail. I try to highlight in red what fails, whether because A is not a number equal to or greater than 1. So this is why George Clooney as a pure rave cannot be a common rave. Rather than overly explain this, I think it kind of can explain itself with some, critical intentional thinking involved. This is sorry, Putin's demi-rave. So he's not a common mid-rave because he has a Q variable. So we'll fail in this way. This is me just trying to be as formal as I can with my pre-calculus experience at writing this out. So thank you so much for watching. I'm going to wrap up this video with that. Thank you to my dad and uncle for being supportive people in my life and math nerds that I can just, show off this stuff to. Really appreciate it. So thank you so much for tuning in. And once again, especially if this happens to be shared within networks, I accept donations at my Cash App, #CoffeeCrow420. So thank you so much for watching.